children in sport, how do we keep them participating and being retained in maintaining physical activity? I recently became aware of some very important work that an Irishman is doing in Sweden, where they're looking at restructuring the format of youth sport to be child-centered as opposed to be adult-centered. And what that really means is that this approach to streaming kids according to ability and trying to strive for finding elite teams and elite players early on, they're trying to reverse that and try to make his participation in sport, in this case soccer, to be very much child-centered. And that's a very important issue, because we've got a lot of information now over a number of decades that early specialization in one sport is not good for what's termed long-term athletic development. So if you have a child who just plays soccer from the age of 8 or 9, then there are very limited sets of physical skills that are developed in that type of strategy, as opposed to playing Gaelic football or rugby or gymnastics or racket sports and things, different variety of sports. So what the child-centered approach means is that a coach doesn't have the right to say, I don't want you playing another sport, I want you dedicated to just playing my sport, which often, unfortunately, is a common theme, and I've seen it at first hand many times myself. So that's a adult-centered approach, whereas if the child wants to play multiple sports, then really they should not be forced to have to decide. And you see that happening, maybe deliberately, maybe not, where there's a clash of fixtures between two different clubs in a town, one playing one code and another playing another, and it could quite easily be resolved just with a bit of collaboration if the child's best interests were at heart. This whole idea of long-term athletic development means that there's a window of opportunity for children to learn movement skills, what are called fundamental movement skills, and these might be skills of running, passing, changing direction, rolling, twisting, hopping, jumping, climbing, hand-eye coordination, using a racket, those kind of skills. There's a limited window of opportunity to learn those things, and kids need to be exposed to those kind of tasks, and obviously need to be exposed to good quality coaching to try to facilitate their own development. And if they specialize too early, they don't develop those skills. No different to studying maths from age 10. Your social skills and interpersonal skills would be somewhat compromised if that was the approach that was taken. So this work in Sweden, I think, is really very, very important, because it comes under the International Convention on Children's Rights. And unfortunately, I've seen far too many kids who have been devastated by being cut from a squad if there's been a new trials at the end of a year. So a kid that may live in his local area is exposed to other kids who've come from out of an area who want to play for that particular team, and just by a process of elimination they get streamed out instead of being able to play sport with their peers and children and friends that they've grown up with. So it is quite an important consequences. The other thing, obviously, is that winning trophies is very satisfying for the coach's ego, but one has to question, is that really the primary objective of most kids playing sports? Do they play a sport to win a trophy, or do they play because they enjoy the enjoyment of it? And then the culture of winning and the demands of the adult coaches are superimposed upon those kids. Of course, you have the whole issue of behavior on the sideline too. So the demands and desires of parents, everybody wants to see their child do as best as they can or maximize their potential. But the simple reality is that maybe 5% of kids are going to be able to perform their chosen sport at an elite level. And I suppose we get so much exposure to elite sports performance that we tend to get focused on that. But just remember that the vast majority of kids are going to be in that less than elite situation. So should we structure sports and participation and selection in a way that keeps those other kids involved, or do we structure it so that it becomes very much about trying to find the best players and streaming them off so that they go into some sort of an elite program? And unfortunately, the statistics on that are that the dropout rates in late childhood or early adolescence, they tend to be quite damning, really, which would tend to suggest that that's not a good strategy for keeping people physically active. Now, every day we're bombarded with information about the benefits of exercise, and obviously if our structure of approach to youth sport is such that we turn kids off because of being overly competitive, then really we're not instilling the values of maintaining exercise and healthy living long term into the future. So it's a very important issue. It's a thorny issue because there's always that challenge between wanting to push kids to be their best and at the same time recognizing what their limitations are. The other big factor, of course, is the variation in rates of development, that kids do not develop in a linear way. So they'll go through bursts of development, and a child that might be weak at 13 or 14 may be very strong at 16 and 17, but has already been cut from the squad, in which case the ship has sailed. We all see stories of late developers who go on to become elite players, but for all those stories that you hear, there's a whole raft of broken kids that have been discarded too early just because of their stage of maturity, because of their date of birth in a year. If they were at the beginning of a year, then the kids that were, they will tend to be more mature and bigger than the kids born at the latter half of the year. There could be 11 months in the difference. So there'll be a natural bias built into selection just simply based on your date of birth. And most age groups are categorized from year of birth, if you like. So there's an inbuilt bias there, which covers a big spectrum. And 11 months is a big gap in maturing children. So it's an important issue, and probably one we'll come back to again, but I just wanted to highlight it for you and to point you to the reference by Mr. Mark O'Sullivan. We have that posted on our Facebook web page and also on our Facebook page, Dublin Physiotherapy Clinic. So if you're interested in that, feel free to check that article out. Hope you enjoyed the video. I'll see you again on another one. Bye for now.